Passover is almost upon us. How are we going to make it an exciting and motivating and enriching experience? My name is Yitzwyne. Thank you for joining the Life is Great community. All right, so again, we're doing our Passover theme talks, and a question that has come up a lot this year in our community, Young Israel Aish in Las Vegas, which we always invite you to join us. We've had a kind of a rash of babies being born. And the mother's great question is, okay, I know that when I bring the baby to the Seder, there's going to be a lot of, wah, wah, wah. It's going to be very, very difficult. And the question is, how does a young mother deal with the baby at the Seder? And on a broader sense is, what happens if you have a Seder and you say to yourself, wow, I'm into this stuff, but I know the people around, they just really want to get to the food. So in a previous Life is Great audio podcast, I discussed the 20-minute Seder, which I gave you the secret of like, how can you encapsulate everything pretty quickly? Today, we want to talk about Passover minimums. What is the least amount of things you need to do in order to actually have a kosher Passover Seder? So the first thing is when you begin the Seder. You have to start the Seder after 3 stars have appeared. So it really needs to be after nightfall. That's the first thing. Then when you show up, so you need a Haggadah in front of you. This is the Haggadah I like to use. It is the Artscroll Children's Haggadah. The reason I like it is because it has fun pictures, and I like pictures. Okay, so you do need a Haggadah in front of you. Then what happens is you start off on page here 14 with the Kiddush, Kaddish. Okay, so what is the essence of the Kiddush? You're basically saying this is what the day is about. And you start off, what do you need to say? What's your minimum? Well, it's going to be starting off with a blessing over the wine, a blessing over the day. And then it happens to be this year and this year only, not only, but often, right over here in the purple, we say Havdalah. See, the first Seder is Saturday night. So before you begin your Passover experience, you actually need to say these words. Baruch hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh. Blessed is the one who distinguishes between holy and holy. And you say that after nightfall. Sit down, get your Seder preparations ready, pour a full cup of wine. The custom is you have someone else pour the wine for you. And you're sitting down and you say this blessing over the wine, which you can say in the Hebrew or the English if you want. And then you continue on. It's all of this page. And when you get to the Havdalah, so then over here, you're also going to take 2 candles that were lit previously, and you touch them together. That's a blessing you say over here. And then you say a blessing of the Shechianu prayer. That's the blessing that says, thank God I'm alive. And that is a huge, huge thing, okay? That is the end of the Kiddush, and you drink your cup of wine. How much wine do you need to drink? You need to drink the majority of the cup. So if you use a smaller wine cup, they say use a 4-ounce cup, and you drink 2 ounces of wine, you're covered. You're covered with that. And if you don't want to drink the wine, you can use grape juice as well. All right? So it's like the majority of the cup, use a smaller cup that you're holding, and drink it. Drink it, of course, when you're leaning to your left-hand side. That's what we do. All right. The big blessing over here is the blessing over the Shechianu. But thank God I'm alive, because you got to be happy now. Don't wait till later to be happy. Be happy now. Okay, you turn the page, then you wash your hands, and only one person in the Seder needs to wash his hands by Urchatz. And he washes the hands by taking a cup of water. I'm not going to do this right now, but you pour it, 3 times on the right, 2 or 3 times on the right, 2 or 3 times on the left, and then he comes back, and then then you're up to karpas. You take a piece of vegetable, other than more, meaning take some celery or parsley, whatever, dip it into the salt water. Remember the tears of the Jews as we were oppressed in Egypt, and you make the blessing and you eat it. Then you pick up the matzah. You have 3 matzahs in front of you. Take the middle matzah, you break it, or someone else breaks it. If you're holding the babies, you're just watching this happen, right? And they break it. They take the larger piece of matzah, they put it away. And that's a symbolic of the larger piece of matzah is redemption. Redemption has not yet come. We're looking forward to it. So we put it away. We're not yet free. And then you begin the magid. So now at this point, this is the beginning of it. So you need to say that first paragraph right here. It's on in this case, page 17, where it says, the matzahs, this is the matzah, it's poor man's bread that our forefathers in the land of Egypt. You turn the page, you say your 4 questions. This is when you pour your second cup of wine, and you're going to talk about the story of leaving Egypt at the 4 cup of wine. So you say your 4 questions. Okay, now we're going to read the Haggadah. How much of the Haggadah do you need to say? I hope you're sitting down for this, because I'm going to explain how to do this in literally a minute and a half, okay? You need to tell the story of leaving Egypt. Well, there's 2 parts of the story. You need your basic elements. The first element is that you have to speak about it from disgrace to exaltation, okay? That's how the story's got to go. The next thing is there are 2 elements of the story. There was spiritual disgrace to spiritual exaltation, and physical disgrace and physical exaltation, right? And then you have to say the purpose of the end result. This is how it goes. The physical disgrace was we were slaves in Egypt. Originally, we were slaves in Egypt. God brought all of the plagues, and through the plagues, we understood about how God's involvement in the world. At that time, there were a lot of people that were steeped in idolatry, not worshiping God. But through these plagues and the miracles, we saw God's hand, there's one God who ruled over nature, including the splitting of the sea, which destroyed the Egyptians. And therefore, God brought us out of Egypt, out of physical slavery, out of spiritual confusion. So now we were free people who believed in one God for the purpose of receiving the Torah Mount Sinai and perfecting the world by sharing ethical monotheism. Done. You are finished. You told the story of the leaving of Egypt. You ready for that? You can take 6 hours to do it. You can take 60 minutes to do it. You can take almost 66 seconds to do it. But that's what it is. Those are the elements. Now, the rest of this Haggadah, all these pages say that story just in a long way. But again, if you say, we were slaves and we were a little confused, we were worshiping idols. Originally, we were idolaters. And through the miracles that God brought us out of Egypt, Egypt was destroyed and we believed in one God. And then we were free people and we split the sea. And then we had a purpose of our freedom to receive the Torah Mount Sinai and teach the world all about God and goodliness through the commandments. That's it. That is the Magid. So now that allows you to skip. You can skip the 4 sons if you want. You can skip the plagues if you want. You can skip all of the, all the great stuff. It's a lot of fun. Dayenu, right? You can skip all that. And then you get to page 44, right over here. This is the end of the Magid, okay? What must you say? It says, Rabbi Gamliel would say, a person cannot fill the mitzvah of the Seder properly without explaining 3 items. Pesach, matzah, moror. So that is when you have to say, now these are short paragraphs. You need to say these short paragraphs. So in this, it's on page 45, talks over Passover. What is Passover? It reminds us that God passed over the houses of our fathers in Egypt when killing the Egyptian firstborn. The word Pesach means passed over. The fact the Torah tells us this is the Pesach offering to Hashem, because when he killed the Egyptians, he passed over the homes of the Jews. Done. Matzah, you pick up the middle matzah, which is, remember I told you had 3 matzahs in the front? You hold it up. Why do we eat matzah? You say to remind us this is the dough our ancestors prepared and did not have time to rise. God brought us out, the Jews out of Egypt very quickly. There was no time to prepare food. Done. You explained matzah. Now, when you would speak to me about matzah, I'm going to tell you how matzah is symbolic of getting back to basics in life. It's flour and water, baked fast, symbolic of humility, symbolic of the fact that God brought us out of Egypt. We were just, we had to believe in God. So that's why it's called the bread of faith. Okay, that's extra stuff though. Then you have moror. Moror, you pick up the moror on the Seder plate. The moror can be horseradish root, or it can be romaine lettuce. You're looking at that, page 47. Maror, why do we eat the bitter herb? To remind us that the Egyptians made the lives of our ancestors very bitter. Done. Right? You said those three elements. Now you're good to go. So again, I would tell you when you're eating the maror, I would say, think about your own bitterness in life and now God can redeem you. Okay. Again, that's extra. Now you say this phrase. This is on page 48. You need to say this paragraph over here. This paragraph tells you in every generation, even today, everyone must feel as if God personally took him or her out of Egypt and freed him or her from being a slave. It was not only our ancestors that were saved, but God brought us out of Egypt. We have to say that paragraph. You have to recognize that God brought us out of Egypt. And you remember that's a repeat, actually. That's what I just told you, that you said. So if you missed that paragraph, but you said what I said before, technically you're good. And then it says you raise your wine cup. You say, therefore, we must thank, praise, contribute to God, and thank God. And then you've and you finished Magid. Now you need to begin saying the Hallel. There are 2 paragraphs on page 49 to say. So you need to say these 2 paragraphs. They go by very quickly. They are the first 2. They are chapters in Psalms, chapter 113, chapter 114. You've done that. And then there's a blessing that you say this, and then you drink your second cup of wine. This blessing's on page 50. Okay? So that also is a minimum. Say that blessing. This is the blessing that, blessed are you, God, King of the universe, who saved us, saved our ancestors from Egypt. Let us reach this night of matzah where we eat matzah and maror. Hashem, our God, God of our ancestors, let us celebrate the festival of future and peace. May we rebuild your city, Jerusalem, happily. May we serve you with joy. In Jerusalem, we will eat the offerings and the Korban Pesach. Then we will sing a new song of praise to you for saving us. Blessed are you, God, who saved Israel. Say that paragraph, and then it's Borei Pri Gafen. Second cup of wine. Again, drink the majority of the cup. If you have a small cup, it can be as little as 2 ounces. All right. You've done it. You've done 2 cups of wine, and you've done the Magid. You're almost done. You're almost done. Okay, so now you get up, you go wash your hands like you're going to eat a bread. And when you're washing your hands, there's plenty of stuff to think about. You talk about how your holiness of hands, you have to bring holiness into the world. You make a blessing after that. Now you're going to make a blessing on the matzah. So the guy has matzah round. Now, if you have round matzahs, you're going to make the blessing on the matzah, and then the blessing on eating on the motzi, which is over bread, and then the blessing of the matzah. This is all found on page 51. When you eat the matzah, you need to have 1/2 of a round matzah or 2/3 of a square matzah. When you start, you make the blessing and you just eat it, and you just stay quiet until you finish eating it. And you think about matzah. Think about how it's poor man's bread. Think about how it's getting back to basics in our lives. That's what you think about. Okay, fine. You're done. Then maror. Now you get to maror. That's on page 52. You got to eat some maror. How much maror do you need to eat to fulfill your obligation? You need to have either 3 ounces of ground horseradish, not horseradish in the bottle, but ground horseradish, like live horseradish root, or about 3 romaine lettuce stalks, or a combination of both, like 1 romaine lettuce stalk, then 2 tablespoons of the ground horseradish. Take it, you make the blessing over here, you eat it, finished. Then you have korach. Korach is, again, you take half the amount of matzah, which is 1/4 of a round matzah, or 1/3 of a square matzah, and the same amount of maror. So that would be, say, 2 romaine lettuce leaf stalks, and then 1 tablespoon of horseradish root, or something like that. You take that and you eat it, and you remember, you say little things. Say, and remember to the temple, we do just as Hillel did in the times of the temple. He would combine matzah and maror, eat them together, and this way he fulfilled the commandment, and he ate it. That's it. Then you have the meal. What do you want for your meal? Chicken soup, piece of chicken. You're probably not hungry now. Whatever it is, a piece of celery, whatever you want. Have that, and then you're done. Okay? Then, tzafun. Tzafun is afikomen. The afikomen is, you got to eat again another half a matzah, half a round matzah, or 2/3 of a square matzah. And then you're done. Okay, so so at the end of the day, what are you eating? You're eating one full round matzah. It's 1 full and a quarter, or you're eating 2/3, 2/3, and a third. That would be 1 2/3 of a square matzah. So that's the whole thing. So again, if you just wanted to do this when you got the baby and you're taking the baby and you're nursing the baby and you're talking to the baby, and I say that if you're one of these people that is like, I'm going to be up and down, don't worry about where everyone else is. Just worry about doing the minimum. Worry about what you need to do, and you'll have a meaningful experience. Okay, then you have to, now that you've been eating bread, you have to say grace after meals. What's the minimum you need to say for grace after meals? Okay, it's actually 4 paragraphs. So you can skip the first part with the Shir Malos. You can skip the introductory part. The first blessing starts on page 55. It's 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs. It's from page 54 to page 58, right? 6 paragraphs, 7 paragraphs, sorry, to page 59. So it's literally, it's like in this book, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. That's what it is. You get to before the harachamans. So it's the minimum amount of the benching that you say every Shabbat when you have challah, whenever you eat bread. Then you can skip a bunch of pages. And then you, to get to the end of it, and then you pour your 4th cup, and then you, at the end of the benching, you drink the 3rd cup of wine, which again, the majority of the cup, and say 2 ounces, if you have a small cup. If you have a bigger cup, then you might end up having to drink 3 ounces of wine or grape juice. And then you pour the 4th cup, and you say on page 63, people open the door, they invite Eliyahu and Navi in, and they get up and they say, pour out your anger on the nations of the world that don't want to know who you are and don't want to pray to you. They've killed your people, destroyed the base of Mikdash. Pour your fury upon them and destroy them from under the heavens. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi. Boom, done. You're literally almost done. And now you need to say Hallel. So again, in the book, it's like 15 pages. Okay. But if you go to the very end of the Hallel, just the very end, all you got to get to the end of it. Skip all that stuff, all the stuff where you're praising God and thanking God. And it's very beautiful and it's very meaningful. It's absolutely wonderful. And I'd suggest you should say it if you could say it. But what do you need to say? Page 75. Page 75, right at the bottom over here, the last paragraph of the Hallel, where it starts off, Yishtabach Shimcha V'ad Malkeinu, where it says, may your name be praised forever, our King. It's 1 paragraph. You are God, the great and holy King, the heavens on earth. Hashem, our God, God of our forefathers, it is fitting that we speak about you with song and praise, Hallel and music, your power and your rule, your victory, your greatness, your strength, your praise, your glory, your holiness, your kingship, blessings and thanksgiving. From now and forever, blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King, great praises, to whom we owe our thanks, Master of miracles, who chooses musical songs, King God, who gives life to the world. Boom, you did it. Then you drink, okay? Then you drink your 4th cup of wine, another 2 ounces of wine, or 3, depending on how big that, right? The majority of the cup. And then you make an after blessing of the wine. And then it's 1 more paragraph of Nirtzah, which is on page 77. The Passover Seder is now finished according to its halacha, its Jewish law, because you did everything I told you to do. So you're covered. And then, just as we've had the honor to conduct it, may we merit to do all of its mitzvahs, such as the Korban Pesach. O pure God who dwells in heaven, please help your Jewish people stand tall, and may you lead them back to Zion very soon with a happy song, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. Oh my gosh, how long did that take? Not very long. It did not take very long at all. But you've covered all of your necessary elements, right? And again, the more you speak about it, the better off of an experience you're going to have, up to the point where you're on the downslope and now you're tired and a little sick and a little hungry and you're frustrated because you got to get the baby and all that kind of stuff. So if you're leading a Seder, I suggest that you lead it pretty on time. There's fun things to say in here. There's the 4 questions, the 4 sons, the plagues, the dayenu. Have a good time. And you will give the people around you great memories, which is what it's all about. It's about creating a good memory for yourself, for the people around. You want people to remember your Seder. You want it to be that 20 years from now, when some very smart rabbi asks you the following question: what was your favorite Passover memory? You want them to think about your Seder. Okay? So you have to find that balance between bringing it all out, telling the stories, explaining the meaning and purpose behind it, making it very relevant, having the children participate, and moving it along so it doesn't turn into the worst Passover memory because of the frustration that was going on. All right, very nice. Thank you so much. You're really covered, but I want to invite my very favorite Dana Rutherford. She is our producer over here, and she always comes. She brings it, and she brings it with the questions that you have submitted over to rabbiyitzwyne@gmail.com, rabbiyitzwyne@gmail.com. Come on into the camera. People should see you. Okay, there you go, Dana. Go ahead.
Everyone.
Tell us.
Thanks,
Read us the
Rabbi.
questions. What's going on?
All right, so the first question says, my sister just agreed to host a Seder, and I'm going to help her, but she wants to do it differently than our parents. I want to keep it exactly as we did when we were young. How can we reach an agreement about keeping everything that we need to and still keep the peace between us?
Peace. Cut the baby in half. Slit the baby. How do you do that? Okay, so really what's going on over here is you have to remember that the traditions from our parents are crucial. When we're reading the Haggadah, the people who read through the Haggadah, you're reading the same thing that's been around for thousands of years. When you're going through the order, even though I just gave you the bare minimum, whatever you're doing is the same thing that Jews have been doing for 3,300 years. For 3,300 years, a little more, Jews have been eating matzah, drinking 4 cups of wine, eating the moror, okay? And then these various things have developed. So it is important to explain, okay, we're carrying on our family traditions too. Okay, so that's important. So I would say that you identify certain things that they remember, that the two sisters remember growing up, and say, what did mom and dad do? What did Bubby and Zeta, our grandparents, do? Identify those things and then bring those things in. And then the rest, you kind of fudge a little bit. You move it around. You can shorten it up, okay?
Excellent. All right, and the next question says, what are some good conversation questions I can ask around the table as we eat that will help teenagers connect more deeply with Pesach?
Awesome. So one of the major themes of Passover is going to be gratitude. And really the whole Passover Seder is to develop gratitude. So going around, and I suggest doing this during the meal, asking people, what are you most grateful for? And connecting that with the fact that God has brought that in their life. And do they see that, God has, helped them out with that, A lot of the times you meet the guy who made a lot of money. Oh, I did it. I went to work, God had nothing to do with it. Okay, yeah. All right. But the thing is like this. So you want to stop and say, so gratitude is very important. The other thing is it's the birthday of the Jewish people. And we acquired this mission, as I've said, to receive the Torah at Mount Sinai, accept the 613 commandments, and then teach the world about ethical monotheism. So asking people, what does it mean to you to be Jewish? And why is being Jewish different to you? How is your answer different than a religious Christian? Right? Like, because sometimes I say, oh, well, it's my connection with God and I'm different. Okay, well, do you think a Christian would say that? Right? Like, maybe any person of faith would answer that question. So what does it mean to be Jewish? What aspect of the Jewish mission can you commit to better fulfilling in the coming year? Which would be connected with bringing goodness and godliness in the world through the mitzvahs. What mitzvah would you add? Do you think you could do a little better? So it's always good to show up with suggestions, because a lot of I don't know what mitzvahs there are. I don't know the mitzvahs, right? So if you have a list of these are all the things, that the people do, then it can inspire people to take a next step. But it is important to recognize you're not going through a Seder just to sit on your laurels and then crawl into a hole and die. We go through a Seder in order that we should grow. And at the end of the Seders, we should be a little better, and we should do a little more than we ever have done in the past. If you always ask yourself the following question and ask the people, do you want to be a better Jew next year than you are this year? If the answer is yes, then necessarily you have to do something different. Do you want to have a better Seder this year than it was last year? If your answer is yes, you have to do something different at your Passover Seder than you did in the previous years. So that speaks to, but you've got to keep the traditions, because the traditions are how we perpetuate the memories. All right? Thanks for joining the Life is Great community. Thank you, Dana. And here we go. Let's say I'm wishing you the traditional wish is a Chag kosher v'sameach, which means a holiday that is kosher, right, done right, and happy. And so very often on Passover, it is the one holiday when people really do step up their game, try to do things better, do it right more often. So this time I'm going to change the order. Have a Chag Sameach, a happy Hag v'kosher. And it'll be right too. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.